to progress to upper managerial positions and alter the corporate structure toward gender parity. Evelyn Wednesday works for a radio station. So initially they were getting participants for both newspaper and electronic media. But I think there's been a decision to just now concentrate on newspaper. Whether that be assuming greater leadership roles within our organizations, enhancing our performance in our current roles, or pursuing the significant and meaningful results to date show that WinTech in particular impact. We will all benefit from WIN's unique approach to capacity building over the next few years, which is today and tomorrow. Mind you, this was mentioned, we said yesterday, had there not been in more detail through another dynamic leadership workshop led by PAULA FRAY. Keynote speakers including the most powerful newswoman in Liberia, Wada Williams, who will be arriving later on today, and internationally acclaimed publisher and press freedom advocate, Fred Mendes, as well as an interactive panel discussion on Following Your Passion, featuring some remarkable women from across the African continent. All this, of course, will be complemented by the peer mentoring, which will happen later. And I believe even during dinner yesterday, we were talking to one another, maybe that happened in some form or the other, as well as breakout discussions. Has met with their country peers on 4 occasions throughout 2012 to learn new skills, engage in knowledge sharing. Through this regular interaction with each other, we have developed strong ties and answers. The WIN Summit is an opportunity to take these connections and learnings to the next level. And I have no doubt, feel free, this is your program, and unless you participate, you speak out, chances are that you won't learn anything. And then the year-end self-assessment forms, which I believe all of you have, and if you don't have, please just see me.
Take a lot of what we've learned over the year and try and turn it into very, very practical implementation of some of the management issues we've been having. And so this morning session is going to be very practical. You know that Wada is not here, and which means we have 45 minutes presentation that she was supposed to make. I hate to tell you, but Melanie has given it to me. Three areas that people have particular problems with. And then we're going to do 2 separate management case studies, and everyone's going to get an opportunity to then work through those case studies and identify which of the skills you learned you're actually going to be able to program for 2 years. What are the challenges you're still facing in the workplace? And we'll go through really very quickly, and I'll ask everyone to restrict the challenges to 1. I know that the workplace media is actually very, very important issues, and we'll list them up and try and make sure we cover them today during the session.
The problem I experience for managing is there's a free attitude. I have some sales executives who are lazy and expect their friends to carry their weight.
Okay.
Yeah.
And these are people who report to you?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So unproductive staff. Next person? And you've also been very, very unusual.
Yeah. Supervisor side, communications sometimes come back to
Okay. What your supervisor is not doing labor properly.
Yeah, communication. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, next one.
I think that I would say that interdepartmental communication is also a problem. Having regard for other departments for their deadlines.
Silence down to the newsroom and advertising and marketing and distribution, and make everyone realize that we're actually working towards the same goal. That we're not competing against each other, which is what we often do. Go ahead.
I think communication. It's not try to do like this is a thing that somebody.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting. I've always said organization, negotiating salary, negotiating position within the organization, yes, which is a communication issue. But in the past, that you can remember being part of something greater than yourself. It's powerful, isn't it? I mean, the one thing that always strikes me is that we underestimate the power of a team. Because when your team is well chosen, when your team has the right capacity, they complement each other, you know, when the staffers are able to offset each other's weaknesses and strengths, it's a really, really powerful entity. I mean, it's really a good example of this, of the sum of the whole being greater than the sum of the parts. You know, that the individuals, they can do so much, but actually together they do allow them to make a fool of themselves, or allow them to do all the hard work to find the information again. And for some reason, it often works that way. Your manager is not giving you the information you need in order to do your job effectively, rather than you not giving your manager.
There's some problems with management change. Because we relaunched the new legal paper and everything, and everybody did what they were supposed to do.
The problem which I face at my company, I think, is we are continuing. Because we find that there's a lot of individualism. For example, there is no proper communication between departments.
So to give input to bring compromise
Your work.
Yeah.
So micromanaging.
Yes.
Not that
And then the other challenge is the same as the first speaker, the laissez-faire attitude, where again, maybe your boss is recruiting people who are not fully qualified, and that will compromise and put pressure on you to meet deadlines like, just the first speaker.
So it is a lack of management structure. You don't know who you're reporting to, or one day you're reporting to somebody, the next day somebody else is giving you instructions. One day you're responsible for something, the next day you're not. Yeah? Difficult. Workplaces are shrinking, and instead of technology taking over, we seem to be doing the same amount of work with fewer people. Yeah?
For me, in the department, I think it's mainly communication, both from the top and the bottom, and even across departments. So you find that we need to meet the deadline.
And so there's poor workflow.
Yeah.
Session, and we'll try and go through that process of how we do that. How many of you have been appointed as managers? How many of you have a position of manager? Okay. So there are quite a number of managers in this room. How many of you are leaders in your organization? Yeah? You don't think you're a leader? Well, so what's the difference between management and leadership? What do managers do? What do managers do?
They give instructions.
They give instructions. Yes? We say they manage people, want to be a leader. But the reality is that effective leadership doesn't happen without effective management. Those of you who came to the National Gatherings, when we were looking at the Nelson Mandela case study, one of the things that stands out about the case study is that without the technocrat, without somebody doing policy, creating policy, doing the administration, doing the day as it actually was. And so very, very often, then, this partnership of good management and good leadership is what drives companies. Steve Jobs, brilliant leader, visionary, bad administrator, bad manager. You know, couldn't remember the time he let his life depend on. So, Bennett says that the manager copes with complexity, plans and budgets, organizes and staffs, controls and problem solves. Carter says that the manager promotes efficiency, is a good soldier, imitates, accepts the state leaders, do the right thing. They set the course for new things. They innovate. So, what do leaders do? What do you think leaders should do? You look at these challenges. What should leaders do? Sorry. Shout out.
You should inspire.
Inspire? Well, think of a leader identified the manager who was a coach. We identified the official person who was really good with processes. And we identified the manager who was, trying very hard, it should be in your folders. So the manager as coach, the manager as official, the manager as team builder. Yeah, he delegates, he looks forward. Do you have your hand up? What does the leader do? Yeah.
Mostly a leader from what I work with or work around. My boss, for example, he's the kind of boss who will go and out to do it himself. He will delegate, but at the end of the day, he does it.
Well, he knows, he's confident. Hey. Any other examples? What do good leaders that you work with do?
They sometimes lead projects like
They lead projects that need innovative, so they try to drive change. They're visionary. Explain that, they're visionary. The manager is the person who says, this is what we need to do in order to get there. Sometimes the manager and the leader is the same person. Often, the manager and the leader is not. Often, it's the person who has informal leadership and influence in the organization that's articulating the
For leaders, get people to follow them, irrespective of whether they believe in the actual or see the actual end goal. And I think sometimes it happens that managers get people to do things by increasing fear of if you don't do it, but the leader will not do it. The leader will get people to believe in it.
Yeah. And so a manager has at their disposal various tools. A manager has job descriptions or not give bonuses, the ability to assign horrible stories, assign horrible tasks, give them, difficult advertising supplements to sell, knowing that, that you have spent 2 months and possibly you're going to get very little commission. So the manager wanted you to do something even though there was no bonus at the end of the line. There was no promotion, but you did it because they convinced you that the destination was worth the trouble. They're the people who are actually having to do the work, these people aren't doing. And if you don't take action, then you create a culture that's not conducive to learning and growth. You get people who are demotivated, who think, I earn such a little that I work so hard. My manager doesn't hear me. I have no status in this organization. So don't think about the person who's not working. Think about the person who is and how that impacts on them. So what do leaders do? They motivate and inspire employees, they sustain growth, and they build relationships that sustain growth. Most, if not all of us, are leaders. We haven't been appointed leaders. No one can appoint you as leader. The way you become a leader is to grow your sphere of influence, is to take a stand, to take responsibility in your workplace. If you're a manager, you have a starting point. But if you're a manager, it's effective and they're certainly not building relationships. So the choice of whether you're a leader or not is your choice. You can be a good employee, you can work hard, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to be a leader, you actually have to step forward. You have to step forward and take action. And I think sometimes that's scary because we all work in very competitive environments where when you step forward and take action, it is now 10 to 10. You have got until 1:30, and you have to prepare flip charts. There are 2 case studies, and the case studies look at things within the workplace that you've already identified as your issues. I want you now to begin to think about how practically you can solve them. I want you to dig into you having your difficult conversation sessions and ask yourself, how am I going to talk to this person? How am I going to resolve this issue? What planning do I need? How am I going to deal with it in a way that has long-term effects, not short-term benefits? I think very, very often we go into a problem, we look at the symptoms, we have a session which entails us saying, I don't like this, I want your head to go with the practical knowledge of how to take the theory and turn it and use certificate limits. How all of this, why does it matter that we know the difference between management and leadership? Why does it matter that we know the elements of change management? Why is it important that we were able to have difficult conversations? Okay, and in order to make sure we break everyone up, I'm going to break this up into 6 groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So relaxed.
And has come up with some trouble. You explain as you go along, why you do that? You want to get it. She's going to read it.
So, the questions are as follow. What are the challenges Sally faces in managing her friends? What should Sally do to manage her boss and her former friend? With regard to her friends, we think that Sally has a problem. Sally fails to 1, communicate, 2, she failed to manage herself, and therefore she managed to fail. What should Sally have done following the announcement of her appointment? We think Sally should have firstly done the friction, the fact that they did not want her to know what she was saying. And then, question 3 describe Sally's relationship with her staff. We believe that Sally was an early managed herself, ASAP. She needs to be confident, she needs to be open to ideas, she needs to consider other people's opinions and their needs, and then she needs to be professional. We also think that she needs to communicate effectively and therefore consult with people and get buy-in. She needs to learn how to be a manager. And lastly, where am I? Question 5. Question 6. What should Bessie, the best friend, do to manage her boss and former friend? She needs to have that difficult conversation she had. They have to work together, they have to be together. So she needs to have that difficult conversation with her about why they ended up in the strength that they're having. Then they need to restore their friendship. She needs to also understand that even though they were friends, she needs to understand that this is her boss now, she must deal with it. But find a way of working. They were friends, yes, but now this is her boss. So they need to find a way of working with each other, and they need to be professional. Thank you.
She perhaps confuses her previous position with a new position, and definitely there's disrespectfulness between everybody, resistance to change, and the lack of buying-in, getting buy-in from her colleagues. We also feel that Sally is maybe having difficulty drawing the line between friendship and professionalism. I just thought of something else now. Sally's faith is forcing authority. She forces the authority down on the people that she now needs to manage, and therefore having difficulty getting them to respect her.
It just looks at it, it's a bit personal now because she doesn't put herself in Sally's shoes. Probably Sally has issues as well because she's been just newly appointed and maybe she's in a confusion, she doesn't know what to do as her boss, as a supervisor. But she doesn't look at it that way because the new position, she still feels that, they are still on the same platform, of which they're not supposed to be conducting like that.
And then she also needed to acquaint herself with her new position. What was really required of her. It was not just to go in and start changing things. So the others listening and set new rules and goals. That way she was going to earn the respect and and confidence of the others, and even assure the others that they're all working together to achieve one thing. Thanks.
It's quite stressful. There are new demands, you have new duties, you need to lead a team, and people don't always know how to conduct themselves. Professional, respect. You still need to respect your superiors, whether or not you agree with them. Restore teamwork. Do something from her side to make sure that the team, again, believes in their manager. And then be considerate and supportive.
The other point on question 6 is that she also needs to be constructive, because for her to go and report to the other colleagues openly that they had an argument is not constructive in any way. So she needs to have ideas on how to rebuild her relationship with her boss, Sunny. Thank you very much. Some very interesting insights there. We'll discuss it all after the last present. Please. The first thing I want to say is, in your workplace, right, be discreet. Don't talk about your colleagues. And I'll tell you why. When I was in the newsroom, we always used to talk about the idiot on job. And then one day, you are the idiot on job. Right? And you contribute to a culture which is always undermined the person who is part. Certainly, she should not have rushed in and began to give instructions to people, but she should actually assess what was happening, what people's strengths were, what their weaknesses were, what works, what doesn't work. But when it came to her friend, when you move from being a friend to being a manager, I think you have to have the talk. Yes? You have to have the talk which says, sit down, things have changed, you know, our relationship is going to change, and I think certainly that in the workplace, we're going to.
Before you go on to that point, I just want us to be practical. For example, I have Ginzal, we are colleagues, and let's say I'm promoted. Can I honestly ask her to come into my office and say, is it practical? And say, okay, now I'm a manager, things are going to change, or you just have to propose yourself diplomatically, rather than calling her into your office? Is that practical?
One of the most common complaints I get from newsrooms are from news editors who say, this reporter is unmanageable because he's best friends with the editor. And so when I give them an assignment and he doesn't like it, he bypasses me. So when you're managing your friends, you have to be absolutely sure that you are fair. You have to make sure that you're not giving your friends the best stories, the best trips. Suddenly your friend who's not the environment reporter is number 18. You know? I can see people nodding. I know that. But you don't want to be that kind of manager. You want to be the kind of manager who's fair. The next thing you don't want to do, which is what Sally did, you don't talk about your staff. You never ever talk about your staff. Even if you used to speak about, so you don't ever want to speak about your staff. What else would you do about managing your friends? You want to be discreet, you want to be open, you want to be fair, you want to make sure that you're following processes with all your staff. Then.
Is it possible to achieve both, like have this relationship with your friend, you are friends after hours, and also be the boss at work? Is it something that can be achieved? I would rather have, maybe reduce my, so that it doesn't have to influence my decisions and everything. I would just have to make decisions on my own to say, okay, how am I going to handle this? Maybe I should reduce the times we go to the club or go wherever, just so that I, but without seeming to be, like, now I don't want to associate with her at all. But
but is it possible to achieve both successfully without compromising?
Relationship with that person. Maybe you have a calm relationship where there's mutual respect, where this transition would not be a problem. But if you have a detrimental, kind of chaotic relationship, it's obviously going to infiltrate into your work, and there you have to reduce the amount of time you spend.
When you move from being a friend to being a manager, I think you have to have the talk, okay? You have to have the talk which says, sit down, things have changed, you know, our relationship is going to change, and I think simply that in the workplace, we're going to behave differently. So you need to be open. And sometimes, you know, even if this is your if, forever, so you have to find the most appropriate way to have the talk. You know, maybe you take it up for coffee, maybe you have it at home. What happens is the relationship has to change. And the relationship has to change because other people are watching to see whether you know how politicians, when they become appointed, then suddenly all their friends and family get onto the grave day. Well, quite frankly, it's the same in organizations. You know, people look out to see, so, you know, she's been appointed, and look at all her friends getting all the nice jobs, etc., etc. I'll tell you that one of the most common complaints I get from newsrooms are from news editors who say, listen, this reporter is unmanageable because he's best friends with the editor. And so when I give them an assignment and he doesn't like it, he bypasses me. So when you're managing your friends, you have to be absolutely sure, this is my job, this is what I have to do. And we need to separate this relationship. You're still my best friend. And after hours, we'll do what we normally do. But in this office, I have to manage. I have to manage, and people out there need to see that I manage without being influenced unduly by people who aren't actually in the position of authority. Any other comments?
Just a question. Is it possible to achieve both, like have this relationship with your friends, you are friends after hours, and also be the boss at work? Is it something that can be achieved? I would rather have, maybe reduce my, so that it doesn't have to influence my decisions and everything. I would just have to make decisions on my own to say, okay, how am I going to handle this? Maybe I should reduce the times we go to the club or go wherever, just so that but without seeming to be, now I don't want to associate with her at all. But is it possible to achieve both successfully without compromising?
I think that's good on paper, but it's not necessary because there are a lot of external factors which contribute, like the nature of your relationship with that person. Maybe you have a calm relationship with this mutual respect where this transition will not be a problem. But if you have a detrimental, kind of chaotic relationship, obviously it will infiltrate into your work, and there you have to reduce the amount of time you spend with the person.
It's a bit tricky, but I think if you're both mature, perhaps it could be attainable to balance the friendship or to manage the relationship. But it's also, a lot of things will have to change. Like some of things you talk about, like you were saying, we can't talk about other staff members. When you were just friends and nobody was a manager, you could do that. It was like the gossiping thing. But now, it causes the friendship to shift a little bit. But if you're both mature enough and the friendship is good, it's attainable.
One of the big issues about being a manager is that the edges between personal and professional begin to blur. Right? And so what you do in your personal life begins to reflect on your professional life. And if you go off to a club and you get horribly drunk, right? And your staff see you there, it changes the way they view you back in the office. Yes? If you go to the office party and you're the last person you you lost your right? It comes the new year, and everyone's not taking orders from you. Well, you can understand. Is it possible to have both?
Yeah, it's possible. But it's very, very, very tough. Like what you said. It's like, you know, when you're still friends before the new position comes, you discuss them and, you know, go on the way, oh, he and she issues. But then when you're just in a position where you're trusted with information about the organization that you're not supposed to share, and then you don't talk about it anymore with her, it becomes a problem because she's wondering what's going on. Why don't you talk about these more? And why don't we talk about ours?
And it's actually, you know, it's part of the growing up process, to be honest. It's part of the process of maturing, of changing, of taking on new responsibilities. What we do now, what we did when we were young, we don't do anymore, do we? Yep.
I think it's possible because you have to be honest with each other. When you're at work, you should be there, but when you're outside,
you really need to change maybe abruptly. I just want to give an example. For example, if you become a social worker, so many things we have changed in your life. I think if we have any social workers, they will understand that if you become a social worker, you're not allowed to drink publicly, you cannot go to drugs because you cannot impact other people's lives if you are being drunk, you know. So what I'm just trying to say is that you have to have behavioral changes for yourself. You also need to change yourself. Maybe actually you don't have to, like what you say, that you don't have to be spending too much time with your friends so that you know it won't interfere or compromise your job as well.
Why are you changing? Just because you got a position, now you're changing. That's why you've got to create that expectation. Things have to change. And they have to change because everyone needs to see that I'm fair. Everyone needs to see that I'm managing with integrity. And the best way to do it, you know, is to ask them to help you. See, here's a really nice thing about managing a friend. A friend can be honest and say, you know, you're just behaving like you know, why are you doing this? This is unnecessary. A friend can be honest with you and say, you know, you're not expressing that well. You haven't explained this to us. You're not managing. People in the office are upset with you. So having someone who can be honest with you and who you can trust, to be honest, is a really good thing. So it's not necessarily all bad to have a friend in your office. But you do need to set your parameters right from the beginning. Then you need to be fair. You need to manage your friend the way you would manage everyone else. You need to make sure that you're not suddenly giving your friend all the best jobs, all the best assignments. You need to be open. And you know, it is an issue in your organization. You need to be upfront about it. You say, I understand that is an issue, that my best friend is working in this office, but these are the parameters. And then you need to be sociable, but to a degree. You can't be the drunkest person at the party, you know.
Suppliers. Because people then regularly say, you know, that you're giving the jobs to them because they're friends, or you're being. How do you deal with that?
What do you think? What do you do when?
If I had to speak to the supplier, if I gave you a certain project, what do you think? Is it fair? Is it open? So just to have someone that they can always go to and actually seek advice about.
This person is afraid. The other thing is disclosure. You know, when I appoint my friend, when I do something where it might look like there's a conflict of interest, disclose. Disclose to your managers, to the team working on the project. This person is my friend, this person is my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, etc. Any other comments?
A certain point of the budgeting process, for example, to somebody that has absolutely no financial background, because then you will be disappointed in the outcome.
You can't delegate your KPIs, right? You can't delegate the key things of your job. Otherwise, your staff won't feel resentful that they're doing your job and you're getting paid for it. So the starting off point is delegate appropriately. Delegate tasks that challenge your staff. Delegate tasks that fall within, that kind of stretch their KPIs. So it's still within their ambit, but stretching them, giving them more skills, experience. You can't say, do the sound slide, and then disappear and say, oh, I delegate to my staff. That's just not delegation, it's an active experience. This is the task, these are my expectations, these are the deadlines. This is the level of quality I'm expecting. Come to me if you need any help along the way. And then to go back constantly. Are you fine? Is it working? Do you need any feedback? Etc. You can't hand over and walk away. Unless the person is very senior and has already done this before.
In terms of delegation, with all of the going back and forth, it's very difficult to somehow make sure that this is honest with the process. Because in some tasks, one asks yourself the question, who is supposed to do it and who is? When you give them the deadline to attain, and you expect them to come to you with it. But every time you start going to them, you're going to find out what you're going to ask you anyways on the chain. So it's very, I'm not sure how one can trust that ownership makes the person coming to you on the around.
What do you think? In going back and making sure the person understands, knows, and checking up and having all these deadlines, if it takes away ownership, well, it takes away the sense of ownership from somebody, how would you ensure that the person knows that on a particular day your expectations are quite high and they remain firm? What would you do? Okay? Would not, wouldn't hover over them, but you would simply come to them and say, how is your thesis going? Would it stand up to an external moderator? So, one of the ways to ensure ownership.
They will deliver. You don't even have to make follow-ups. But she knew Susan was that type of person who needed to be pushed. Because her comment was, you have never, done an assignment on time. So the more reason why she should have been checking on her. So I think as a manager or as a leader, you should know your staff members very well. When you assign duties, you assign and you make follow-ups relevant to the character of that employee or subordinate.
Good manager. But on the ground, the reality is that management is specific to the person you're managing and to the environment in which you are managing. Now you can change the environment, you can work on the environment, you can build the capacity of individuals, but you still have to do it within your context. There is no checklist. There is no checklist that says, so now when you delegate, this is what you're going to do. Because you're going to do exactly that and say, the person who I'm delegating to is young, is inexperienced, has never done this, therefore I must have greater control over what they're doing. The person I'm doing this is experienced, but lacks a self-management ethos, therefore I have to give them a checklist. The person I'm doing is strong, needs no supervision, I'm going to hand over this task and ask them to bring it back the day before it's due. So it needs to be very specific to your environment and the person you're managing.
You don't delegate your risk routine because you don't trust them to do it.
Is to recognize that sometimes the person who doesn't do a good job needs to actually be helped, needs to be pushed, needs to be challenged all the time, because it's simply a matter of getting experience. And that's very difficult, because it makes your job easier when you give to the best person the job, doesn't it?
You want to delegate to one of your subordinates, and then whenever you delegate something to her or him, the first thing he does or she does is to question on what basis you are delegated. And then why should you delegate to her? And then she would come up with an idea or maybe a question. When I look at my responsibilities, this is what I'm supposed to do. You see? And then even when you are delegating, I believe it's a way of training the juniors. And then there are others who you would trust, like we are discussing. whereby you give them work and you know that they'll do the work perfect. But then there are these others whereby when you delegate, they are always questioning.
I think it's a question of being able to identify the strength, because as far as we are concerned, I think as a group we agree that Tembi had good management skills, and Susan on the other hand was a leader, and hence coming back with this new innovative software. So it was not a question of upstaging, but being able to identify and maximize on the different strengths that people have.
Personally, that you have a goal. That you understand what the goal of your business unit is, what the goal of your newspaper is. Okay, so that you're working towards something. If Tembi and Susan actually knew what their goal was, they would use their complementary personalities towards a greater goal. And now I want to move on to the way to be sitting in that meeting to your rush. So, when you start off, if you're the person who's managing the meeting, start off with your outcomes. Why are you having this meeting? Is this meeting necessary? Then once you have your agenda, you also need to have the responsible people. Don't have a meeting where you're talking and you're reporting what other people are doing. Don't pretend it. Don't tell people what they're doing or where they are, you know. Allocate time on the agenda for different people. And so that's the next thing. Give it time. Allocation. In other words, say, this discussion is going to take 15 minutes. This discussion is going to take 5 minutes. Why? Because then when someone says, oh, did you see that film on DSTV last night? You can say, guys, we've only got 5 minutes for this section. If we finish early, you know, feel free. But let's keep it on track. So give it time allocation. Always have space for general, what you forgot to put on. Why? Because it makes people feel that if they got there, they would have been able to raise their own issues and give a voice. Then, every meeting, you know your staff, you have the staff who always jokes. You have the staffer who always has a funny story. You have the staffer who's always hostile. They say, well, not always hostile, but always will be the one who will speak up. Even if they're not necessarily the person who's against it. But everyone knows that that person will always, who likes to talk management and say, don't you want to raise the fact that, you know? And so that you just have to kind of nod them and, you know, one little prod and they're off, like a Formula 1 car, fighting other people's battles. You know those people? Exactly. So what you have to do is, when your meetings give you an opportunity also to know yourself, to listen to them in an environment that's not kind of do this, do that, to get a real sense of what matters to them, what doesn't matter to them.
If you can, just ask for the memo.
Just like this? Just like this?
I think that when you go into a meeting which you think is not necessary with we have quite a lot of those. We try to, or I try to always take whatever is in the meeting or said to the meeting to take that and make something from it, if you know what I mean. So if you think the meeting is not necessary, still participate, still listen to what is said, because there might be things under discussion that you think or that you thought is not important, but that comes out in the meeting.
Can I quickly add something? I think also what I sometimes try to do is, if the meeting is necessary, I try and refocus it.
I mean, absolutely. As a leader, you don't need to be the person who's appointed to manage this meeting to be able to help keep the meeting on track. You can say, can we just clarify the goals of this meeting before we start? You know, and that will help focus everyone's mind. And then when people start talking about gossip, you can say, guys, this is like a very interesting, but I need to be out of here, so can we get back to the agenda? And you can do it in a very, very nice way. But the point is to have empathy and respect. I mean, sometimes you'll find that managers who lack confidence will have lots of meetings because it's a nice soapbox that they can actually kind of stand there and say, and then I think this and I think that. But you don't want to be rude to them, and you don't want to undermine them in front of their staff. Remember what we said earlier on? You don't, even before you get appointed to your management position, be discreet. Don't be the person who's talking about your boss, making fun of your boss.
Just to add on that, I think some things you might find some things not necessary for you because probably they don't affect you directly, but it might be necessary to other people.
Setting goals. I mean, it's just like what you were saying earlier, like about not just in the meetings, but about okay, this is what my department, how your department plays a role in the entire thing. That's what has come out mostly for me, and yeah.
Drawing the line between friendship and professionalism, I think it really contributed to also my understanding on how I can deal with that, at work, because at times friendship can encroach into your career as well. So that's what I took from this discussion.
Excellent. Aspect from the case studies that we heard about today is the importance of effective communication and the inability to synchronize, all of the channels that an organization can have and how it can, have adverse effects on the outcomes.
Different setup in companies. I'm planning something like that, starting up a company. So I think we need to set down clear responsibilities of who's responsible for what, and when it's meeting time, we should be more serious, and when it's play time, we should be
taking away case study 1 and everyone's commenting on it because I am a Tembi in this story. I founded my own magazine, me and 2 partners. So I'm the Tembi of the partnership. I'm in charge of the editorial part, but because I like to see things get done and done well, I almost always end up doing the business development and marketing and advertising side of it because I just want to see things get done.
Excellent.
That same thing that what I've learned is the importance of managing, because by nature I'm a leader. I'm more about inspiring and growing people, and I realize that my biggest weakness is managing because I expect you to just do what you say you're going to do. But I've learned that it's very important to follow up. Otherwise, then you can't even be good at what you're doing if you're a manager. You need to be on people. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, and appreciate those values.
Yeah. And I just realized that innovation is just not about tasks, but it's also about communicating the responsibilities.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I've also learned a lot, and I just want to say thank you because I've asked you a question and you really answered it, like how to deal with someone. Say, for instance, if your friend, if you're promoted, you need to give instruction how to do. I've learned that, and I've also learned that working as a team, you get a lot of stuff done if you're working as a team and rather than working against each other and not getting angry.
Excellent.
That's a very practical examples of what we go through.
First, I want to say thank you very much, Paula, for the discussions. And I have heard and learned that effective communication is very, very important, as well as to draw a thin line between friendship and
just from my side, I think the most key thing that I have learned is that one is not just managing for the sake of managing, but that you're managing towards a definite goal.
I would also just like to say, Paula, thank you very much. It's the second time that we have a session with you, which every time it's amazing. But from today's discussion, everything was very, very relevant and very applicable. So I will take all 3 topics and I will take it home. But if there's something that I've learned specifically, then it's that we're not alone and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. all sitting in this room that we can keep contact with and phone up and say, hey, I'm having this problem. How do you deal with it? Do you perhaps have some advice?
I've learned that delegation is very powerful and it can set you free. And the importance of communication. Thank you so much.
I've learned actually a lot. There's communication, delegation, but what I'm taking out mainly is on the managing of meetings. Because usually when I'm like chairing a meeting, I find myself with people who are always trying to deviate from the main agenda and how to bring them in back to the agenda that we are meeting. You find that sometimes it's a bit trick. Yeah. Because some, you are colleagues and you are always laughing with each other and then they always want so that's where actually I've learned a lot. And
I've learned that even if most employers want employees to grow their profits but neglected to grow them, as an employee you can find growth in that kind of situation, because most of the times when supervisors or editors delegate, we think that we are being exploited, but like you guys were saying, it can be a positive thing because it can be an indicator that supervisor has faith in you, he's eyeing you, he wants to coach you, and obviously preparing you for better things in life. So I won't resist when my supervisor is delegate.
A lot, and I realized that there's a lot that I've been doing wrong. And I realized that delegation is an active experience where there are expectations and deadlines. And my problem has always been I delegate and I have to end up doing everything because I'm generally a nice person, so I don't like confrontations. So I would rather say, but I had expected you to do this, but if it's fine, I'll do it.
What you make him sure of is that he's not shocked by the end of the process, or she's not shocked, or that if you've misunderstood each other, that by the end of the process you're not suddenly handing over something you're proud of, and he's shocked at because, oh my lord, this wasn't actually what they were expecting. So it's a process of managing your manager when you give unsolicited feedback to your manager.
Your team members. This was a good refresher for the beginning because I need to delegate more. I've started doing that more now. And it just reminded me that there's a certain way to do it. It doesn't get, it's never easy being a manager, but it does get easier if you've got the right tools. Excellent.
It's 9 o'clock now, so we'll probably work through until about 10:45 for the first session, and have a break, and then come back and work through until 1 o'clock. Communicating effectively in the workplace, managing meetings, and delegating. And we've identified these 3 areas after discussing with your coaches, and identifying that there were 3 areas that people have particular problems with. And then we're going to do 2 separate management case studies, and everyone's going to get an opportunity to then work through those case studies and identify which of the skills you learned you're actually going to be able to use over time. So I want to ask you to start off by talking about what are your particular challenges. Some of you have been in the program for a year, some of you have been in the program for 2 years. What are the challenges you're still facing in the workplace? And we'll go through really very quickly, and I'll ask everyone to restrict your challenges to 1. So who'd like to go first? Tell me when you get time to go. Yes. If any of the graduates want to leave, you can. If you want to stay, it would be really great. Okay, so who wants to start? Who's awake? Next person? Come, let's move quickly. We've got like a very, very big... Go ahead. Yeah?
I do agree with that. Yeah.
Just from my side, most probably it could be about how to get staff to actually take charge of the project, to actually take responsibility for the task that you assigned to them.
Okay.
That could be one aspect, and the other one is how to be able to take all your priorities that you have in the day and try to implement it and try to get everything done.
Okay. So you said that all your priorities. I want you to take a step. Go ahead, next one.
I think that one could say that interdepartmental communication is also a problem. Having regard for other departments, what their deadlines, duties, and priorities.
Yeah. It's interesting because yesterday I'm going to put self-motivation, but it also sounds like an issue of managing your managers. Managing your managers or having the difficult conversation, negotiating salary, negotiating position in the organization, which is a communication issue.
For me,
you know, we want to do this together and do it successfully together.
Yeah. How many of you work in teams that are very, very effective? How many of you work in teams that you really feel proud? I mean, it's really a good example of this, of the sum of the whole being greater than the sum of the parts. You know, at the individuals they can do so much, but actually together they do much, much more. And I think sometimes when we think of teamwork, we just think of it as being a group of people working together. But real teamwork is a group of people focused towards the same goal and using their different skills to cover for one another, to offset one another's weaknesses. So let's talk about it when we're doing our case studies.
The ability to give feedback on that, to report back to that.
That's a very, very interesting one, because the withholding of information is one of the ways that we marginalize people within our workplace. You know, if you want to weaken anybody, what do? You just don't tell them what they need to know. You allow them to make a fool of themselves, or you allow them. So sometimes we do it to ourselves. We take on a job that's almost impossible to do properly. We agree to a job description that is just, wrong. It's never going to work. So being able to manage your manager is a really key skill in the workplace. Because when you do it in a relationship as for the best of the organization working towards a vision, it makes both of you better. If you have a manager who's mean, spiteful, difficult to work for, quite often knowing how to manage them